The crystal chandeliers in Mom's dining room cast perfect light across the mahogany table. I'd learned to appreciate how expensive everything looked here. The imported Italian plates, the Belgian linen napkins, the centerpiece that cost more than most people's monthly rent. My sister Rachel had insisted on this family dinner, though I suspected it was really about showing off her engagement to the investment banker sitting beside her. So Emma, Rachel's fiancé Devon began cutting his Wagyu beef with surgical precision. Rachel mentioned you're still doing the art thing? I took a small bite of asparagus. I paint, yes. How charming, Mom interjected, refilling her wine glass. Though we keep hoping she'll grow out of it. She's 32 now. Rachel laughed, the sound sharp and practiced. Mom's being diplomatic. Emma lives in a studio apartment in the warehouse district. She wore the same dress to the last 3 family events. I glanced down at my navy dress. It was simple, well-made, and yes, I'd worn it before. It's comfortable. That's exactly the problem, my brother Marcus said, not looking up from his phone. He worked in tech, something about cryptocurrency that he explained often and thoroughly. No ambition. No drive. Just painting things nobody wants. Devon's expression shifted to something between pity and discomfort. Well, the arts are important for culture and things. She's never sold a single piece, Mom said, as if I wasn't sitting 3 feet away. Not one. 32 years old, and she's never earned a real paycheck. I set down my fork gently. The salmon on my plate had probably cost $80. I could have bought canvas and paints for a week with that money. I've sold pieces. To who? Rachel demanded. Your art school friends who also can't pay rent? Various collectors. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. Collectors. Right. Is that what we're calling the people who buy stuff at garage sales now? I'm just saying, Mom continued, her voice taking on that particular tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable while saying something cruel. At some point you need to accept reality. Your father and I paid for 4 years at an excellent university. You could have studied business, law, medicine. Instead you chose art, and look where it got you. She can't even afford a car, Rachel added, gesturing with her wine glass. She takes the bus everywhere. Can you imagine? The bus. Devon shifted uncomfortably. Public transportation is actually very efficient in this city. Rachel touched his arm. You're sweet, but no. It's embarrassing. Emma, you could work at Dad's firm. Receptionist, maybe? At least you'd have health insurance. I have health insurance. Through the government exchange, Mom said, making it sound like a disease. Because you qualify as low income. Do you understand how that reflects on this family? I took a sip of water. The ice clinked against the crystal glass. Baccarat, probably. Mom only used the best for family dinners, especially when Rachel brought Devon around. She showed up to my engagement party in an Uber, Rachel said to Devon, as if sharing a scandalous secret. Not even Uber Black. Regular Uber. I don't own a car, I said evenly. Exactly. Marcus jumped in. Because you can't afford one. You're living paycheck to paycheck. Oh wait, what paycheck? You're living off whatever random people give you for paintings they probably use to cover wall stains. Mom sighed, long and theatrical. We had such hopes for you, Emma. You were so bright in school. Remember when you won that essay contest in 10th grade? We thought you'd be a writer or a professor. Something respectable. Instead she paints, Rachel said, shaking her head. Pictures of random things. Landscapes. Portraits. Nothing even original. Actually, I started. And don't get me started on her studio, Mom interrupted. I visited once. The building should be condemned. Concrete floors, exposed pipes, no proper heating. She has a hot plate for cooking, for heaven's sake. It has character, I said quietly. It has roaches, Mom corrected. I saw 3 of them. 3. In broad daylight. Devon was looking increasingly uncomfortable, his fork hovering between his plate and his mouth. Well, I'm sure Emma's doing what makes her happy, and isn't that what? Happy doesn't pay bills, Marcus interrupted. Happy doesn't build equity. Happy doesn't prepare for retirement. You know what she has in her 401k? Nothing. 0. I checked. I blinked. You checked my retirement account? Mom gave me access, he said dismissively. Someone needs to monitor the family's financial health. Your liability, Emma. A 32-year-old liability with paint under her fingernails and delusions about making it as an artist. Rachel leaned forward, her engagement ring catching the light. 3 carats, she'd mentioned. Several times. It's just sad, honestly. Devon's sister is a doctor. His brother's a partner at a consulting firm. And then there's you, the failed artist who can't even afford to frame her own work. I frame my pieces, I said. With what, popsicle sticks? Marcus laughed at his own joke. Mom reached over and patted my hand, her expression dripping with synthetic sympathy. Sweetheart, we're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to help. You need to face facts. You're not going to make it as an artist. It's time to get a real job, something stable. Maybe meet a nice man with a career, settle down. Devon, doesn't your firm have openings for administrative assistants? I'd have to check. Devon said, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. See? Opportunities, Mom said brightly. You could work in a proper office wear professional clothes, contribute to society. Isn't that better than languishing in that terrible studio pretending you're the next Picasso? I never compared myself to Picasso. Because you couldn't, Rachel said. Picasso was successful. Picasso sold paintings. Picasso didn't live in a converted warehouse with questionable wiring and take the bus to buy ramen noodles. I took another bite of asparagus. It was perfectly seasoned, probably prepared by the chef Mom hired for these dinners. She'd stopped cooking herself years ago once Dad's hedge fund really took off. You know what I think? Marcus set down his phone with emphasis. I think you're being selfish. Mom and Dad invested in your education, in your life, and you've given them nothing in return except embarrassment. Do you know what it's like for Mom at her country club? How are your children? Oh, Rachel's marrying an investment banker, Marcus works in tech, and Emma paints. We tell people you're still finding yourself, Mom said sadly. At 32. Still finding yourself. Most people have found themselves by 25, Rachel added. But not Emma. Emma needs more time to discover that she has no marketable skills and no prospects. Devon cleared his throat. Rachel, maybe. No, she needs to hear this, Rachel insisted. We're family. If we don't tell her the truth, who will? Emma, you're wasting your life. You have nothing. You've accomplished nothing. You're going nowhere. I'm content with my work, I said. Content, Mom repeated, making the word sound poisonous. Content with failure. Content with poverty. Content with being a disappointment. Do you even have any paintings in galleries? Marcus demanded. Real galleries, not some coffee shop that lets anyone hang their stuff? I've shown in galleries. Which ones? I took a sip of water. Exactly, he said triumphantly. She can't even name them because they don't exist. Or they're so small and pathetic they're not worth mentioning. Rachel turned to Devon with an apologetic smile. I'm sorry you have to see this. Emma brings down every family gathering. She just sits there in her cheap dress, eating our food, contributing nothing to the conversation except vague claims about her art career. She lives in a fantasy world, Mom agreed. Always has. Even as a child, she was drawing instead of studying, painting instead of networking. We tried to guide her, but she was stubborn. Delusional, Marcus corrected. The word is delusional. She thinks she's going to wake up one day and magically be successful without putting in any real work. I work every day, I said quietly. Painting isn't work, Rachel snapped. Work is what Devon does, managing millions in investments. Work is what Marcus does, developing actual technology. Work is what I do, running marketing campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. What you do is a hobby that you've convinced yourself is a career. The servers came to clear our plates. They moved silently, efficiently, probably grateful they didn't have to participate in the conversation. I wondered if they recognized the cruelty in how my family spoke, or if they'd simply learned to tune out wealthy people's dinner conversations. Dessert will be ready in a moment, Mom announced. I had the chef prepare creme brulee. Emma, you'll love it, though I suppose you never get to eat things like this in your apartment. I cook for myself. On a hot plate, Marcus said. Like a college student. A 32-year-old college student who never graduated into real life. Devon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then set it face down on the table. The markets are interesting today. Always, Marcus agreed, grateful for a topic change. I've been watching several stocks that could triple by year-end. Emma wouldn't understand, of course. She thinks money grows on trees or whatever artists believe. I understand economics, I said. Rachel laughed. You understand how to not have any money. That's different from understanding economics. She probably doesn't even know what a stock portfolio is, Mom said. Or compound interest, Marcus added. Or equity, Rachel continued. Devon shifted again. Should we maybe talk about something else? Mom finished. You're right. Emma's failures are rather depressing dinner conversation. Let's discuss the wedding instead. Rachel, have you finalized the venue? The grand ballroom at the waterfront, Rachel said, her whole demeanor brightening. 800 guests, full orchestra, imported flowers from Ecuador. Sounds beautiful, I offered. You'll be invited, of course, Rachel said in a tone that suggested this was a great generosity. Though please try to wear something appropriate. Maybe Devon can loan you money for a new dress? As a gift. That's not necessary, I said. It really is, Mom insisted. You can't wear navy blue again. People will talk. They already talk enough about our family having a struggling artist. Speaking of struggling, Marcus said, scrolling on his phone again. Emma, when's the last time you had a real sale? And I mean real, not $50 from someone who felt sorry for you. I sell regularly. To who? Rachel demanded. Name one person. My collectors prefer privacy. Marcus snorted. Collectors. Sure. Your imaginary collectors with their imaginary money buying your imaginary valuable art. You know what's really sad? Mom said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Emma actually believes she's successful. She actually thinks she's accomplishing something in that awful studio, painting away her life. It's almost sweet in a tragic sort of way. It's pathetic, Rachel corrected. Let's call it what it is. Pathetic. The servers returned with the crème brûlée, placing the ramekins carefully in front of each person. The caramelized sugar tops crackled under the light. This probably costs more than Emma spends on food in a week, Marcus observed, tapping his spoon against the sugar crust. A month, Rachel corrected. Look at her. She's practically salivating. When's the last time you had a proper meal, Emma? One that didn't come from a can or a microwave. I eat well enough. Well enough, Mom repeated. The motto of the unsuccessful. Good enough. Well enough. Never excellent. Never exceptional. Just enough. Devon's phone buzzed again. This time he picked it up, his eyes widening slightly. Excuse me, he said, standing. I need to take this work call. He walked toward the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear. He works so hard, Rachel said admiringly. That's what real dedication looks like, Emma. Not playing with paints all day. I don't play. You do, Marcus interrupted. You play pretend. Pretend artist. Pretend career. Pretend life. Mom took a delicate bite of her dessert. I used to tell my friends you were taking time to find yourself. Now I just tell them you're still figuring things out. At some point, though, I'll run out of euphemisms for failure. Maybe just tell them I'm an artist, I suggested. And advertise your lack of success? Rachel looked horrified. No. We have standards, Emma. This family has a reputation. Had a reputation, Marcus corrected. Until Emma decided to drag it down with her poverty-level lifestyle and complete lack of ambition. Devon returned to the table, his expression strange. Somewhere between confused and excited. He was holding his iPad now, swiping rapidly through something. Everything okay? Rachel asked. Yeah, there's breaking news. Business news. He kept reading, his eyes moving quickly across the screen. What kind of news? Mom asked politely, though she clearly didn't care much. It's about the art world, actually. Forbes just released their annual list of the world's highest-earning artists and... How boring, Rachel interrupted. Devon, you don't need to pretend to care about art just because Emma's here. We all know it's a joke industry. No, but this is actually interesting, Devon insisted, still reading. The top artists sold over $300 million worth of work last year alone. $300 million. That's more than some tech companies' revenue. Marcus looked up. $300 million? For paintings. Apparently. And this particular artist has been completely anonymous. They operate under a pseudonym, no one knows their real identity. But Forbes just revealed who they are and... Sounds fake, Rachel said dismissively. Probably money laundering. That's what I thought initially, Devon admitted. But look at this portfolio. Museum acquisitions, private collections, corporate installations. This is legitimate. Who is it? Mom asked, mildly curious now. Devon kept reading, his finger scrolling. They operate under the name Meridian. Apparently they've been selling through exclusive galleries for the past decade. Only about 40 pieces a year, but each one goes for millions. And they just sold a series to the Guggenheim for... He paused, reading more carefully. $87 million. For paintings. Marcus sounded skeptical. Contemporary mixed media, it says. Large-scale installations, immersive experiences. Critics are calling it the most important artistic innovation in 20 years. Rachel waved her hand dismissively. Probably modern art nonsense. You know, those paintings that are just random splatters and rich people pretend to understand. Actually, Devon continued, the article shows some images. These are incredible. Really sophisticated techniques, combining traditional oil painting with digital projection, structural elements, interactive components. This is serious work. I took a small bite of creme brulee. Well, good for them, Mom said. But that's the exception, not the rule. For every one artist who succeeds, there are thousands who fail. Like Emma. Exactly, Rachel agreed. Emma's been painting for years and has nothing to show for it. This Meridian person is probably classically trained from some elite European academy, with family connections and... Actually, Devon interrupted, still reading. Forbes says Meridian attended a state university. Mid-tier art program. No family connections to the art world. Started selling from a small studio in an industrial district. The table went quiet for a moment. Lucky break then, Marcus said firmly. Right place, right time. Probably knew someone. The article specifically addresses that, Devon said, his voice taking on an odd quality. Says Meridian built their career systematically. Started with smaller galleries, built a reputation through quality and consistency, gradually increased prices as demand grew. Very strategic approach. Where does this person live? Mom asked. Devon scrolled. Doesn't say exactly. Just mentions they maintain a private studio in an undisclosed location and avoid all publicity. No interviews, no public appearances. The work speaks for itself, apparently. Pretentious, Rachel declared. Typical artist ego. Or smart, Devon countered. The mystery adds value. Every collector wants to own a piece by the anonymous genius. It's brilliant marketing, actually. Marcus grabbed the iPad from Devon's hands. Let me see this. I want to know what kind of paintings sell for millions. He started scrolling through images, his expression shifting from skepticism to something else. Maybe surprise, maybe recognition. He zoomed in on one particular image, then another. What? Rachel demanded. What's that face? These paintings, Marcus said slowly. These techniques. I've seen. No, that's impossible. What's impossible? Mom leaned over to look. Marcus held up the iPad, showing a Forbes photograph of one of Meridian's pieces. A massive canvas combining oil painting with subtle metallic elements, creating depth and movement. The caption read, Meridian's signature style. Classical technique meeting contemporary innovation. Emma, Marcus said, his voice strange. Emma, this painting. This specific technique with the metallic layering. I've seen you do this. I set down my spoon carefully. Don't be ridiculous, Rachel said. Emma can barely afford paint, let alone. No, I'm serious. Marcus was scrolling faster now, pulling up more images. Look at this one. That brushwork. That color theory. Emma, you have paintings with exactly this style. Lots of artists use similar techniques, I said quietly. Not like this, Marcus insisted. He was fully focused now, his tech bro smugness replaced by something intense and analytical. These aren't similar. These are identical. The way the light catches the texture, the specific ratio of traditional to modern elements. Emma, where's your studio? The warehouse district. Which building? The old textile factory on Meridian Street. Rachel's fork clattered against her plate. Meridian Street, Marcus repeated slowly. Meridian. The artist's pseudonym is Meridian. That's a coincidence, Mom said, but her voice had lost its certainty. Devon took his iPad back, typing rapidly. I'm looking up the property records for that building. Fema Studio is there. We can hear. The building was purchased 8 years ago and converted into artist studios. Owner is listed as ME Holdings LC. What's the ME stand for? Rachel asked. Devon kept typing. Looking up the LLC registration. It's registered to, oh my God. What? Mom demanded. It's registered to Emma M. Thatcher. The room went absolutely silent. That's impossible, Rachel said, but her voice had gone hollow. Marcus was scrolling frantically through Forbes now. It says here that Meridian owns the building where they work. Uses it as both studio and gallery space for private showings. Emma, how big is your studio? The whole building, I said quietly. The whole, Rachel's voice broke. That building is enormous. 40,000 square feet, I confirmed. I use about 5,000 for my actual studio. The rest is storage, gallery space, and rental units for other artists. Mom's face had gone pale. Rental units? 12 artists rent from me. Below market rate. I wanted to help emerging talent. Devon was scrolling again. The article mentions that Meridian is known for supporting other artists. Provides free studio space to promising talents. Funds art education programs. Donated $15 million to arts organizations last year alone. $15 million, Marcus repeated faintly. That's more than I made last year, Devon admitted, looking at me with completely new eyes. Rachel was shaking her head rapidly. No, this is insane. Emma's poor. She takes the bus. She wears the same dress. I take the bus because I don't like driving, I said calmly. I wear this dress because it's comfortable and I don't care about fashion. I live simply because I prefer to invest in my work. Invest, Mom whispered. The Forbes article, Devon said, still reading, estimates Meridian's total net worth at somewhere between $800 million and $1.2 billion, depending on the current value of retained works and property holdings. Billion, Rachel said. With AB. Marcus had stopped scrolling. He was just staring at me now. The hot plate. You said you had a hot plate. I have a full kitchen, I corrected. But I mainly use the hot plate in the studio area when I'm working late. It's convenient. The roaches Mom saw, Rachel said desperately, grabbing at anything. She said there were roaches. I was temporarily housing 3 artists from Brazil, I explained. They mentioned they'd found roaches in their previous apartment. That was probably what Mom heard about. I was helping them arrange pest control. Mom's hand was shaking slightly as she reached for her wine glass. But you said you qualified for government health insurance. I said I had health insurance. You assumed the rest. The Uber, Rachel tried. You took an Uber to my engagement party. Because I'd been drinking at lunch with a curator from the Met, I said. We were discussing their acquisition of 3 pieces from my Reflections series. I didn't want to drive. Devon set down his iPad. The Met bought 3 of your pieces? Last year. For about $12 million each. The number hung in the air. But you never said, Mom began. You never asked, I said simply. You assumed. All of you assumed. I'm 32, I paint, I live in the warehouse district, therefore I must be a failure. Marcus was pulling up something else on his phone now, his fingers moving rapidly. I'm looking at your building's property value. Emma, this building is worth $42 million. You own it outright. No mortgage. I paid cash, I confirmed. With what money? Rachel demanded. With the money I made from selling paintings. That's how purchases generally work. Devon was looking at me like he'd never seen me before. You've sold over $300 million worth of art in the last year alone. Why didn't you ever mention this? Would you have believed me? I asked. 2 months ago at Rachel's birthday party, I tried to tell Mom about the Guggenheim acquisition. She cut me off and started talking about how I needed to find a husband with a stable income. Mom's face had gone from pale to flushed. I didn't know you were being serious. I'm always serious about my work, I said. But you all decided long ago that my work wasn't serious, so nothing I said about it mattered. Marcus was scrolling through article after article now, his expression growing more stunned with each one. There are dozens of articles about Meridian's work. Interviews with collectors, analysis from critics, museum exhibition announcements. Emma, you're famous. In certain circles. Certain circles? Devon repeated. You're in Forbes' top 50 most financially successful artists alive. You're above people who've been working for 40 years. I've been working for 12 years, I corrected. Since I graduated college. Rachel's voice came out small and broken. But you wore the same dress 3 times. I own 12 dresses, I said. I rotate through them. This one's comfortable for sitting. The navy hides paint stains well. Paint stains, Mom repeated numbly. From work. Which, as we've established, is actually work. The servers returned, moving to clear the dessert plates. One of them, a young woman, paused when she saw Devon's iPad screen. Oh my God, is that about Meridian? I love Meridian's work. I've been following them for years. The waiting list to buy a piece is like 3 years long. 5 years, I corrected gently. I increased it last month. The server looked at me, then at the iPad, then back at me. Her eyes went wide. Oh my God. Oh my God. You're Meridian. That's not public information yet, I said quietly. I won't tell anyone, I promise. She was practically vibrating with excitement. Your Fragment series changed my life. I'm saving up to take art classes because of your work. The way you combine traditional techniques with contemporary materials. It's revolutionary. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. She hurried away, glancing back twice, clearly desperate to text someone but holding herself back. Revolutionary, Marcus said flatly. Your work is revolutionary. Some critics say that. The New York Times says that, Devon corrected, reading from his iPad. Right here. Meridian's work represents the most significant evolution in contemporary art since the abstract expressionists. A revolutionary voice for a new generation. Rachel had tears in her eyes now, but they weren't sad tears. They were the tears of someone whose entire worldview had just shattered. You sat there and let us call you a failure. You called me a failure, I said calmly. I never agreed with you. But you didn't correct us. Would you have listened? Or would you have assumed I was delusional, lying, or exaggerating? The silence was answer enough. Mom's hands were shaking as she reached for her wine glass, drained it, and immediately refilled it. Emma, sweetheart, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said. You understood perfectly. You understood that I paint, that I live simply, that I prioritize my work over material displays of wealth. You just drew the wrong conclusions about what that meant. Marcus was still on his phone and his face had gone gray. Emma, I need to ask you something. Do you have any investments? Stock portfolio? Anything like that? Why? Because I just remembered. 6 years ago you asked me about investing. You said you had some money saved and wanted advice. I told you to just put it in a basic index fund because you probably didn't have enough to make real investments worthwhile. I remember. How much money did you have saved? At that point, about 20 million. Marcus dropped his phone. It clattered on the table face up, showing a Forbes article titled Meridian, the anonymous billionaire artist who changed contemporary art forever. 20 million, he repeated. And I told you to put it in an index fund. I did actually. About 5 million of it. The rest I invested in real estate and art acquisitions. Some I donated. The index fund has done quite well though. Devon was reading rapidly. According to this, you own 3 other properties besides your studio building. A warehouse in Brooklyn, a converted church in Portland, and a... Emma, do you own an entire block in downtown Chicago? Just the old factory buildings. 6 structures. I'm converting them into affordable studio spaces for artists. The estimated value of those properties combined is... Devon paused, calculating. Emma, you have over 200 million in real estate alone. It's an investment, I said simply. Real estate in arts districts tends to appreciate, and I get to support the arts community at the same time. Rachel was crying openly now. I called you poor. I called you a failure. I said you waste your time. You did. Emma, I'm so sorry I didn't. You didn't know, I finished. But you also didn't ask. You didn't care enough to ask. You just assumed and decided and judged. Mom was gripping the edge of the table. Sweetheart, we can fix this. We can start over. You can come to the country club, meet my friends. And tell them what? I asked. That your daughter, the failed artist, turned out to be wildly successful? That you've been embarrassed by someone who was never actually embarrassing. We'll tell them we were protecting your privacy, Mom said desperately. That we knew all along but wanted to keep it quiet until the Forbes reveal. But you didn't know, I pointed out. And I'm not interested in your country club friends knowing anything about me. Marcus had picked up his phone again. Emma, I need to apologize. Seriously. I've been an absolute ass to you for years. If you'd known, you'd have treated me differently, I said. Which is exactly the problem. Your respect was conditional on my financial success. That tells me everything I need to know. That's not fair, he protested weakly. Isn't it? Devon cleared his throat. Emma, I just want to say I think your work is incredible. Even before knowing who you were, I've admired Meridian's pieces. There's one in the lobby of my firm's building, the Convergent series piece. I walk past it every day. You own that piece, I said. Or rather, your firm does. They purchased it for $23 million 3 years ago. It's appreciated since then. Current estimated value is around $40 million. He blinked. We paid $23 million for a painting? For a large-scale installation. 12 by 20 feet mixed media interactive light elements. Your managing partners thought it made a statement about forward-thinking investment strategies. It does, he agreed. Stunning. I just never connected it to you. Most people don't. That's by design. Rachel wiped her eyes. Emma, please. Can we start over? I know I've been horrible, but we're family. You're my sister. I want you at my wedding, really at my wedding, not just invited out of obligation. I am your sister, I agreed. But starting over means you'd have to actually respect me regardless of my income. Can you do that? Rachel opened her mouth, then closed it. I thought so, I said softly. Mom was pulling out her phone now, typing frantically. I need to call Barbara. And Christine. They're going to die when they find out. No. She looked up, startled. What? You're not telling anyone, I said firmly. My identity as Meridian was revealed by Forbes, yes, but I haven't confirmed it publicly and I don't intend to. If you start spreading it around your country club, you'll damage my carefully maintained privacy. And if that happens, I'll make it very clear to everyone that my family has spent years dismissing and belittling my career. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. I would. Forbes already asked if I wanted to comment on my family's reaction to my success. I declined. But if you force my hand, I'll give them an interview. Marcus looked sick. Emma, that would destroy Mom's social standing. Yes, I agreed. It would. So I suggest you all learn to keep this information private, respect my wishes, and maybe, just maybe, consider that someone's worth isn't determined by how much they're willing to advertise their success. The dining room had gone silent except for the quiet sound of Devon scrolling through more articles. There's something else, he said quietly. The Forbes article mentions that Meridian is planning a retrospective exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art. Opening in 3 months. It says tickets sold out in 45 minutes. 42 minutes, I corrected. And there's going to be a reveal event. Where you publicly confirm your identity as Meridian, speak about your process, maybe show your studio. That's the plan. Rachel's voice was very small. Were you going to invite us? I was going to send formal invitations, I said. Like everyone else on the guest list. Whether you deserved personal invitations was something I was still deciding. And now? Mom asked desperately. I looked around the table, at Mom's desperate expression, Rachel's tears, Marcus's gray face, Devon's careful neutrality. Now I think you understand what you've spent years not understanding. The question is whether you learned anything from it. Marcus set down his phone carefully. Emma, I'm sorry. Really, genuinely sorry. Not because you're successful, but because I should have respected your choices regardless. You were pursuing what you loved and I mocked you for it. That was wrong. Yes, I agreed. It was. Can I ask? He hesitated. Can I ask why you never told us? Just said, I'm Meridian, here's proof, stop treating me like this. Because I wanted to see who you really were, I said simply. When you thought I had nothing, you showed me exactly how you valued family versus status. Now I know. Mom was crying now, quiet tears running down her carefully made-up face. Emma, I'm your mother. I love you. Do you? I asked. Or do you love the idea of telling your friends that your daughter is a world-renowned artist? Because 2 hours ago, you loved me enough to call me a disappointment and suggest I give up on my dreams. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I interrupted gently. And that's okay. It hurt, but it was honest. Now I'm being honest with you. You're my family and I'll always be your daughter. But respect isn't automatic anymore. You'll have to earn it back. Devon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression shifted. It's my managing partner. He wants to know if I can confirm that my fiancé's sister is Meridian. He looked at Rachel. Should I? No, I said before Rachel could answer. Tell him you're not at liberty to discuss my private information. But this could be huge for the firm, Devon protested. Having a connection to an artist of your caliber is not something you're going to exploit, I finished. Unless you'd like me to contact your managing partners and explain that you're attempting to use a family connection for business advantage without my consent. He put his phone down immediately. Right. Of course. I apologize. Smart man, I said. Rachel, you picked well. He learns quickly. Rachel let out something between a laugh and a sob. Emma, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything, I suggested. Not tonight. Go home, think about what happened here, and maybe consider that the sister you've been dismissing for years had more substance than you gave her credit for. I stood up, setting my napkin beside my plate. Thank you for dinner, Mom. The salmon was excellent. You're leaving? Mom asked desperately. I have work to do. There's a commission piece due next week. A private collector in Singapore. 20 million, but he's been very patient about the timeline. 20 million for one painting? Marcus whispered. For a triptych, actually. 3 pieces, interconnected theme. It's been a challenging project but rewarding. I picked up my simple canvas bag. The one Rachel had mocked earlier for not being a designer brand. Emma, wait, Rachel said. Your phone number. I just realized I don't actually have your real phone number. You always gave me that basic cell number. That is my real number. I don't need an expensive phone plan for my work. But how do people reach you? Galleries, collectors. I have a business manager, I explained. And an agent. And a legal team. They handle the logistics. The cell phone is for personal calls, which I prefer to keep minimal. You have a legal team, Marcus repeated like he was testing out a foreign language. 3 attorneys, actually. 1 for contracts, 1 for intellectual property, 1 for estate planning. It's necessary when you're dealing with 8-figure transactions. Mom stood up suddenly. Emma, please. Don't leave like this. Say what's up. Really talk. About what? I asked gently. About how you're sorry now that you know I'm successful. About how you want to be part of my life now that it might benefit you socially. Those aren't conversations I'm interested in having. Then what do you want? Rachel asked desperately. I considered the question. I want you to think about who I was 2 hours ago when you thought I was a failure. I want you to ask yourself if that person, the one you thought couldn't afford rent and wasted time on paintings, deserved the way you treated her. And if the answer is no, then maybe work on becoming people who wouldn't treat anyone that way, regardless of their bank account. That's not fair, Mom protested. You thought I was poor, so you treated me with contempt, I said. That says everything about your values. Fix your values, then we can talk about fixing our relationship. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Rachel? About the wedding. I'll send a gift. A painting, probably. One of my earlier pieces from before I was successful. Something from when I was just a failed artist wasting time. I think it'll be a good reminder. Emma, no, I want you there, please. I'll think about it, I said. I'll send my RSVP with the gift. Whether I attend depends on whether I believe you've actually learned anything from tonight. Devon spoke up quietly. For what it's worth, Emma, I think your work is brilliant. And I think the way you've handled tonight shows more class than most people would have managed. Thank you, Devon. Take care of my sister. And maybe teach her that a person's worth isn't measured by their wealth. I left then, walking out into the cool evening air. My phone buzzed. My business manager asking about the Forbes reveal and whether I needed her to handle any press requests. I texted back that I was fine, everything was under control. Behind me, through the still open door, I could hear the sounds of my family's world restructuring itself. Voices raised in desperate discussion, phones being picked up and put down, the clatter of someone's chair being pushed back too hard. I walked to the bus stop, pulled out my basic cell phone and checked my messages. A curator from the Louvre wanted to discuss a possible acquisition. A gallery in Tokyo was requesting 3 pieces for their spring exhibition. My business manager needed me to review contracts for the MoMA retrospective. The bus pulled up and I got on. The driver nodded at me. We'd developed a friendly routine over the years. I sat in my usual seat watching the city lights blur past. In my bag my phone buzzed again. A text from Marcus. Emma, please. We need to talk. Really talk. Not about money or success. About family. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The bus rumbled on, carrying me back to my studio. My 40,000 square foot studio in the building I owned, where I'd painted pieces that hung in museums around the world, where I'd built a career my family had never bothered to understand. I smiled slightly, looking out the window at the city I'd conquered while they thought I was failing. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being yourself, and letting people's assumptions crumble under the weight of their own ignorance. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough. I stood in the doorway of the penthouse suite, wearing my usual jeans and a simple black sweater. The bass from the music system pounded through the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. 28 men in designer suits and luxury watches turned to stare at me like I'd walked into the wrong dimension. My brother Marcus, 32, stood at the center of the room in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His bachelor party was in full swing: champagne towers, catered seafood platters, a private bartender mixing drinks worth $50 each. The Meridian Grand Hotel's crown penthouse, all 4,000 square feet of it, glittered with excess. Riley. Marcus's face twisted with confusion then embarrassment. What are you doing here? I held up the invitation his fiancée Brittany had sent me 3 weeks ago. You invited me. Well, Brittany did. Said family should be here. Marcus's best man, Derek, a hedge fund manager with slicked back hair, looked me up and down with undisguised contempt. Dude, seriously? Your sister showed up dressed like she's cleaning houses. The room erupted in laughter. I'm a brother actually, I said calmly. And these are comfortable. A brother who clearly didn't get the dress code memo, another groomsman called out. This is a 5-star hotel, man. They have standards. Marcus walked over, his face flushed red. Whether from alcohol or embarrassment I couldn't tell. Riley, look, I appreciate you coming, but this is kind of an exclusive thing. The guys and I were celebrating properly. Maybe you should head back to wherever you're staying. I'm staying here, I said simply. Room 2847. Derek nearly choked on his whiskey. You're staying at the Meridian Grand? On what, your warehouse salary? I worked, or rather they thought I worked, managing inventory at a furniture warehouse. It was a job I'd taken 8 years ago, fresh out of community college when Marcus was finishing his MBA at Northwestern. Our parents had poured every resource into Marcus's education, his networking, his career trajectory. I was the practical one, the one who wasn't cut out for business school, as Dad liked to say. The warehouse pays well enough, I said, keeping my voice even. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder, steering me back toward the door. Riley, I'm going to be straight with you. This weekend is costing me $40,000. Penthouse suite, open bar, private chef, bottle service. The works. My groomsmen are all successful professionals. CEOs, investors, entrepreneurs. We're talking business deals, making connections. You being here in your Walmart clothes. It's not the vibe we're going for. I understand, I said softly. Do you? Marcus lowered his voice, but not enough. His friends could still hear every word. Do you understand how hard I've worked to get here? To build this network? These guys are my future business partners. My investors. And you show up looking like you're about to ask if we need the trash taken out. Derek raised his glass. Honestly, Marcus, I thought hotel staff wasn't allowed at guest events. More laughter. Loud, cruel laughter that bounced off the marble floors and designer wallpaper. Maybe Riley can fetch us some fresh towels, someone called out. Or fix the ice machine. Does the hotel know their maintenance guy crashed a private party? I stood there absorbing it all. Every joke, every snicker, every condescending look. My brother didn't defend me. He didn't tell his friends to stop. He just looked at me with a mixture of pity and irritation, like I was a problem he needed to solve before it affected his reputation. You can't even afford the parking here, Marcus said, trying to sound like he was joking but meaning every word. The valet service alone is $200. How'd you even get past the front desk? I walked in through the main entrance, I said. Without being stopped by security? That's surprising. Marcus glanced at his Rolex, a graduation gift from our parents that cost $35,000. Look, Riley, I'm trying to be nice here. But you need to go. This isn't your scene. It's never been your scene. I'd heard variations of this my entire life. When Marcus got accepted to Northwestern with a full scholarship, Dad threw a party at the country club. When I got accepted to the local community college, Mom said, well, at least you'll save money on housing. When Marcus landed his first job at a consulting firm making $120,000 a year, they framed his offer letter. When I took the warehouse job at $42,000 annually, Dad asked if I'd considered applying myself more. When Marcus got promoted to senior consultant, they took him to Paris to celebrate. When I got promoted to inventory manager, they sent a congratulatory text message. The pattern had been clear for decades. Marcus was the golden child, the success story, the son who made them proud. I was the practical one, the backup plan, the child they mentioned second at dinner parties. I'll head to my room, I said quietly. Good idea. Marcus actually looked relieved. Maybe order room service, watch a movie. This party's going until 4 a.m. anyway. Bottle service doesn't stop until sunrise. I turned to leave and Derek called out, Hey Riley. If you see any hotel staff on your way out, tell them we need more champagne up here. The Cristal, not the cheap stuff. The entire room erupted in laughter again. I paused at the door, pulled out my phone and opened my encrypted messaging app. I typed quickly, Marcus Thompson, Crown Penthouse. Cancel all suite access effective immediately. Terminate bar service. Remove catering privileges. Guest status revoked. Then I hit send and walked out. The thing about owning a hotel chain is that you learn quickly how to spot entitlement. I'd spent 6 years building Apex Hospitality Group from a single boutique hotel in Austin to a portfolio of 47 properties across 12 states. The Meridian Grand was my flagship. A $340 million property that had been hemorrhaging money when I acquired it 4 years ago. Now it generated $89 million in annual revenue and maintained a 4.8-star rating across all platforms. My family didn't know any of this. They thought I still worked at the warehouse, living in a modest apartment, scraping by on a middle-class salary. I'd let them believe it because the alternative, watching them treat me differently because of money, felt worse than being dismissed entirely. At least when they ignored me, it was honest. I walked down the hallway toward the elevators, my phone already buzzing. Michael Chin, the hotel's general manager, was calling. Miss Thompson, I received your message. We're implementing the changes now. How long? I asked. Suite access will be terminated in 90 seconds. The system is already updating. Bar service is being discontinued as we speak, and catering is removing all food and beverage within 5 minutes. Perfect. And Michael? Yes. Make sure Marcus understands this is a permanent revocation. He's no longer welcome at any Apex Hospitality Group property. Add him to the banned guest list across all 47 locations. Understood. Should I have security escort him out? I considered this. Marcus's bachelor party was supposed to last all weekend. They'd booked the penthouse for 3 nights at $18,000 per night, plus another $30,000 in services. He'd told all his groomsmen this was his power move, showing everyone he could afford the best. No, I said finally. Let him try his room key first. I want him to feel confused before he feels consequences. Very good. I'll handle this personally. I hung up and checked my watch. 9:47 p.m. Marcus's key cards would stop working in approximately 30 seconds. I took the elevator down to the lobby level, then walked through the restaurant corridor toward the hotel's private office wing. The Meridian Grand was designed like a small city, Restaurants, bars, a spa, conference centers, even a medical clinic on the third floor. I'd spent 3 years renovating it, turning a dying property into one of the most profitable hotels in the region. My actual room wasn't 2847. That was a junior suite I'd booked under my legal name as a cover story. My real accommodations were the owner's residence, a 2,200 square foot private apartment on the 31st floor with keyed elevator access and complete privacy. But I didn't head there. Instead, I went to Michael's office to watch what was about to unfold. Michael was already pulling up the security camera feeds on his wall of monitors. "Penthouse level camera 4, he said, clicking keys. The screen flickered to life, showing the hallway outside Marcus's suite. We waited. At 9:49 p.m., the door to the Crown penthouse opened. Derek stumbled out, laughing, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder. He walked toward the elevator, probably heading to the lobby bar for more drinks. He pressed the elevator button and waited. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Frowned. Pulled out his phone and texted someone. "His keycard access is revoked," Michael explained. "The elevator won't respond to his call. He's locked on this floor." On screen, Derek looked confused. He walked back to the penthouse door and tried his keycard. The light flashed red. He tried again. Red. "What the hell?" We could see him mouth through the camera. He pounded on the door. Marcus opened it, irritated. They had a brief conversation, then Marcus tried his own keycard. Red light. Both men stood in the hallway, now looking genuinely confused. Marcus pulled out his phone and started calling someone, probably the front desk. Michael's desk phone rang. He answered with perfect professionalism. "Meridian Grand Hotel, Michael Chin speaking. How may I assist you?" I could hear Marcus's voice through the speakerphone. "Yeah, our room keys aren't working. Crown Penthouse. Can you send someone up to fix this?" "May I have your name, sir?" "Marcus Thompson. I'm the one who booked this suite." Michael pulled up the reservation on his computer, his face betraying nothing. "I see. Mr. Thompson, I'm showing that your suite access has been revoked by ownership." Silence on the other end. "What? Revoked? What are you talking about?" "Ownership has terminated your reservation, sir. You'll need to vacate the premises within 30 minutes, or I'll be required to call security for escort." "This is insane. I paid $54,000 for this weekend. You can't just..." "Actually, sir, according to our terms of service, ownership reserves the right to revoke access at any time for any reason. You'll receive a full refund minus the cancellation fee, which amounts to, let me see, approximately $12,000. $12,000? Are you kidding me? That's the standard cancellation penalty for same-day termination of a premium suite. It's outlined in Section 7.3 of your booking agreement. I want to speak to your manager." "I am the general manager, sir." "Then I want to speak to the owner." Michael looked at me. I shook my head. "The owner is not available at this time. I'd recommend gathering your belongings quickly. Security will arrive in 27 minutes. Marcus's voice rose to a shout. "Do you have any idea who I am? I'm a senior consultant at Whitmore and Associates. I know people. I'll sue this hotel for everything." "That's certainly your prerogative, sir. However, I should mention that threatening legal action against hotel staff is grounds for immediate removal from the premises and addition to our permanently banned guest list. I'd advise against that course of action." Silence. "Then, why? Why is this happening?" "Ownership's decision, sir. That's all I'm authorized to share." Marcus hung up. On the security monitors, we watched him and Derek rush back into the suite. The camera inside the penthouse, positioned discreetly near the entrance, showed chaos erupting. Groomsmen were shouting, holding up their keycards, trying to figure out what was happening. "The bar service," I said to Michael. He made another call. "Remove all beverage service from Crown Penthouse immediately. Guests are no longer authorized." On screen, the private bartender was already packing up his station. One of Marcus's friends tried to stop him, but the bartender showed him something on his phone, probably the termination order, and continued removing bottles. The catering team entered next, professional and efficient, beginning to clear the elaborate food displays. "What the hell is going on?" we could see Marcus shouting on the monitor. One of the caterers handed him a printed notice. Marcus read it, his face going pale, then red, then pale again. My phone buzzed. A text from Brittany, Marcus's fiancée. Riley, Marcus just called me freaking out. Do you know what's happening at the hotel? Did you say something to the staff? I didn't respond. Another text. He says they're kicking everyone out. This is his bachelor party. Can you please talk to someone? You work in customer service, right? Maybe you can help. I turned off my phone. They're asking the catering manager for an explanation, Michael said, watching the monitors. The catering manager, a woman named Teresa who'd worked at the hotel for 12 years, was explaining calmly while Marcus waved his arms and pointed at things. His friends crowded around, all talking at once. Should we send security now? Michael asked. Give them 15 minutes, I said. Let them try to figure it out first. We watched as Marcus made phone call after phone call. He was trying to reach someone, anyone, who could reverse this decision. At one point he called our father. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see Marcus's face crumbling as he explained the situation. Probably Dad was telling him to handle it himself, to use his professional network to solve the problem like a businessman would. Derek was on his phone too, apparently calling other hotels. But it was 10:15 p.m. on a Friday night in downtown Chicago. Every decent hotel within 20 miles was fully booked. One of the groomsmen, a guy named Craig who'd laughed the loudest at the janitor joke, tried to leave via the elevator. His keycard didn't work. He pushed the call button repeatedly, but the elevator never came. Elevator access is restricted to authorized guests only, Michael explained. Since their room status is revoked, they can't use the elevators. They'll have to take the stairs. From the 42nd floor? I asked. It's clearly marked emergency exit. That's their option until they check out properly at the front desk. On the monitors, the penthouse was emptying rapidly. The bartender was gone. The catering team had removed everything except the furniture. The music system had been shut down remotely, hotel property, controlled by the central system. Marcus stood in the center of the now quiet penthouse, surrounded by his confused, increasingly angry groomsmen, holding his phone and looking completely lost. Derek was yelling at him. We couldn't hear the words, but the body language was clear. This is your fault. You said this place was locked down. You said you had connections. Marcus's carefully constructed image. The successful consultant, the guy who could afford the best, the man with power and influence, was disintegrating in real time. Security should arrive now, I said. Michael made the call. 4 security officers in professional uniforms stepped off the service elevator on the 42nd floor. Their approach was calm, practiced, respectful but firm. The lead officer, James, had been with the hotel for 6 years. I'd personally approved his promotion to head of security. Gentlemen, James said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd handled thousands of difficult situations, you need to gather your belongings and proceed to the front desk for checkout. This is insane. Marcus shouted. We have a reservation. We paid for this. Your reservation has been terminated by hotel ownership. You'll receive a refund minus applicable fees. But you need to leave this floor immediately. On what grounds? We haven't done anything wrong. James remained perfectly calm. Ownership reserves the right to refuse service to any guest at any time. This is private property. You're currently trespassing. That word, trespassing, hit different. Trespassing? We're paying guests. Not anymore, sir. You have 10 minutes to collect your belongings, or we'll escort you out with whatever you're currently wearing. The groomsmen scrambled. Designer luggage was frantically stuffed with clothes, toiletries, expensive shoes. Craig couldn't find his other Gucci loafer and was crawling under furniture looking for it. Derek was still on his phone, desperately trying to book rooms anywhere else. The Ritz has nothing. Conrad's fully booked. Palmer House is sold out. Marcus stood frozen, his face slack with shock. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was his weekend, his power move, his moment to shine in front of his professional network. Sir, you need to start packing, James said to Marcus directly. I want to speak to whoever made this decision. That's not possible. Then I want a name. Who owns this hotel? James didn't even blink. That information is not publicly available, sir. The property is held through a corporate entity. Now please gather your belongings. Marcus finally moved, walking like a man in a dream toward the bedroom where his luggage sat unpacked. He'd planned to stay here for 3 nights. Now he couldn't stay for 3 more minutes. The group moved toward the stairs, elevator access still denied, carrying hastily packed bags and complaints. The trek down 42 flights of stairs in dress shoes, carrying luxury luggage, was not going to be pleasant. Michael and I watched on the monitors as they descended floor by floor, their voices echoing in the concrete stairwell. "Who walks down 42 flights?" someone complained. "This is absolutely insane. Marcus, you said this place was top tier. I want my money back. We should sue." By the time they reached the lobby level, they were sweating, exhausted, and furious. The stairwell exit deposited them in a service corridor that led to the loading dock area, not the elegant main lobby Marcus had walked through with such confidence hours earlier. They had to walk around the building to reach the front entrance. When they finally entered the main lobby, disheveled and carrying their bags, the night manager was waiting at the front desk with checkout paperwork. "Mr. Thompson," she said professionally, "your refund will be processed within 7 to 10 business days. Here's your receipt showing the cancellation fee of $12,000. Do you have any questions?" Marcus just stared at her. "Why? I'm not authorized to share that information, sir. Is there anything else I can help you with? Where am I supposed to go? It's 11 p.m. and every hotel in the city is booked. I can provide you with a list of nearby accommodations, though I can't guarantee availability." She handed him a printed sheet, a standard courtesy list of competitor hotels. Derek snatched it from Marcus's hand and started calling numbers. I watched from the security office as Marcus's perfect weekend collapsed completely. His groomsmen were angry. His reputation was damaged. His power move had become a humiliating disaster. And he still had no idea why. I left the security office and took the private elevator to my residence on the 31st floor. The space was minimal. I spent most of my time traveling between properties, rarely staying anywhere longer than a few days. But it was comfortable, private, and mine. My phone had 17 missed calls. 12 from Marcus, 3 from Brittany, 2 from our mother. I listened to Marcus's voicemails in chronological order. First message, 10:03 p.m. "Riley, I don't know if you're still in the hotel, but something crazy is happening. They kicked us out. Just call me back if you're around." Third message, 10:47 p.m. "Riley, seriously, where are you? I'm dealing with a nightmare here. The hotel is refusing to help and I can't reach anyone who can fix this. If you see any hotel staff, can you ask what's going on?" Seventh message, 11:23 p.m. "I know you're probably asleep, but I'm stranded downtown with 28 guys and nowhere to go. Every hotel is booked. I might need to drive back home tonight, which means the whole bachelor party weekend is ruined. This is a disaster." 10th message, 11:58 p.m. "Riley, did you say something to the hotel staff? Derek thinks maybe you complained about something? About us? I don't know, it's stupid, but I have to ask. Did you talk to anyone?" I deleted all the messages without responding. Then I called Michael. "Is he still in the lobby?" "Yes. He's been on the phone for 40 minutes. No luck finding accommodation anywhere. And the ban is in place across all properties?" "Confirmed. Marcus Thompson is flagged in the system. Any attempt to book at any Apex Hospitality Group location will be automatically declined." "Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Miss Thompson, if I may ask, what did he do to warrant this?" I thought about the question. What had Marcus done? Made fun of my clothes? Called me a janitor in front of his friends? Told me I couldn't afford parking? Those weren't crimes. They weren't even particularly creative insults. They were just typical, standard family dismissal, the kind I'd experienced my whole life. "He forgot who I was," I said finally. "He made assumptions based on appearances." "Well," Michael said carefully, "he's learning otherwise now." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city, watching the lights and wondering if I'd gone too far. Marcus had been cruel, yes. But was public humiliation an appropriate response? Was exercising corporate power to ruin his bachelor party justified? These questions kept me awake until sunrise. At 6:47 a.m. my phone rang. "Riley, where are you? Marcus has been trying to reach you all night." "I'm at my hotel. He said something terrible happened. They kicked him out of the Meridian Grand for no reason. He's devastated. The whole bachelor party is ruined." That's unfortunate, I said neutrally. Did you see what happened? Were you there? I was there briefly. And did they say why they did this to him? I paused, weighing my words carefully. Mom, they didn't do anything to Marcus. Marcus was removed from the property by ownership. There's a difference. Ownership? What does that mean? It means the person who owns the hotel decided Marcus shouldn't be there. That's absurd. He paid over $50,000. What kind of business treats customers this way? The kind that doesn't tolerate certain behavior. What behavior? He was having a bachelor party. I took a breath. Mom, what did Marcus tell you about last night? He said everything was fine, they were celebrating, and then suddenly the hotel staff went crazy and kicked everyone out. He thinks maybe one of his friends said something inappropriate, but he's not sure. Now he's mortified because all his groomsmen think he picked a terrible hotel. That's his version? What other version is there? I stood up, walked to the window. The sun was rising over Lake Michigan, painting the water gold and pink. Ask Marcus what he said when I arrived at his party. You were at the party? He didn't mention that. I was there for about 5 minutes. Ask him what he and his friends said to me. Riley, what are you talking about? Just ask him, Mom. And then maybe ask yourself why he left that part out of his story. I hung up before she could respond. The Meridian Grand Sunday brunch service began at 8 a.m. I showered, changed into comfortable clothes, yes, jeans and a sweater again, and went down to the restaurant. The hostess recognized me immediately. Miss Thompson, your usual table? Please. She led me to a corner booth with privacy and excellent natural light. I ordered coffee and reviewed emails on my phone while I waited. At 8:34 a.m. I saw them. Marcus and his groomsmen, walking past the restaurant entrance, probably heading out of the hotel after spending an uncomfortable night wherever they'd finally found rooms. They looked exhausted, hungover, miserable. Derek spotted me through the glass and stopped. He pointed, said something to Marcus. Marcus turned, saw me sitting comfortably in the elegant restaurant, and his face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, anger, and something else I couldn't quite identify. They walked into the restaurant. The hostess tried to stop them. Sirs, do you have a reservation? Marcus pushed past her, heading straight for my table. His friends followed, a mob of wrinkled designer suits and expensive cologne. Riley, Marcus said, his voice shaking. Were you here all night? I sipped my coffee. I had a lovely sleep, thank you for asking. In the hotel. You stayed in the hotel while we were thrown out. I have a room here, yes. Derek leaned over the table, aggressive. How? How do you have a room when they kicked us out? I wasn't kicked out, I said simply. This doesn't make sense, Marcus said, sitting down uninvited across from me. Something's wrong. First they terminate our suite. Then they ban us from the property. Meanwhile you who can barely afford McDonald's, are sitting here having brunch like you own the place. I set down my coffee cup carefully. What an interesting choice of words. What? Never mind. Why are you here, Marcus? I want answers. I want to know what you said to the hotel staff. Because this started right after you left the party. The waitress appeared with my breakfast. Eggs Benedict with smoked salmon, fresh fruit, house-made pastries. She set it down carefully, refilled my coffee and left. Marcus stared at the plate. You ordered the $40 breakfast. It's very good here. The hollandaise is made fresh. Riley. His voice had a dangerous edge now. Tell me what you did. I looked up at him. My brother, who'd mocked me in front of his friends, who'd told me I couldn't afford parking, who'd called me a janitor and laughed when others made it worse. I didn't do anything, I said. I sent a text message. To who? To the general manager. Saying what? Saying that your suite access should be terminated. The silence that followed was profound. Derek recovered first. You sent a message to the GM and they just listened to you? Yes. That's impossible. You're nobody. You work at a warehouse. You don't have that kind of influence. I took a bite of my eggs Benedict. Perfectly cooked as always. Don't I? Marcus was putting pieces together, his face shifting from confusion to dawning horror. Riley. Who are you? I'm your brother. The janitor, remember? The one who can't afford parking. That's not what I mean. I mean, how did you get them to cancel our reservation? I pulled out my phone, opened a specific app and showed him the screen. It was the Apex Hospitality Group Owners Portal. At the top in clear text, Riley Thompson, Chief Executive Officer and Founder. Marcus stared at it. Read it 3 times. Looked at me. Looked at the screen again. This is fake, he whispered. It's not. You can't, that's impossible. I scrolled through the interface showing him the property list. 47 hotels. Including the Meridian Grand with my name listed as primary owner. Derek grabbed the phone out of Marcus's hands, looked at it, his face going pale. This is real. Ask the hostess who seated me, I suggested. Or the general manager. Or any staff member in this hotel. Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell backward. You own this hotel. I own this hotel chain. 47 properties. The Meridian Grand is the flagship. For how long? 6 years building the company. 4 years since I acquired this specific property. He was doing math in his head. That's impossible. You were working at a warehouse. I was managing inventory at a furniture warehouse 8 years ago, yes. I also took every dollar I saved, every bit of credit I could access, and bought a failing hotel in Austin for $800,000. I renovated it in 6 months, sold it for $2.1 million and used that capital to buy 2 more properties. Then 4. Then 12. The groomsmen were completely silent now, watching this unfold like a car accident they couldn't look away from. You're a billionaire, Marcus said flatly. Multimillionaire. I'm not quite to billionaire status yet. The company's valued at around $1.2 billion, but my personal net worth is closer to $400 million after debt and operating costs. $400 million. Approximately. And you let us think you were poor. You assumed I was poor. I never said that. Marcus's hands were shaking. Why would you hide this? I stood up, left cash on the table for my breakfast plus a generous tip and looked at my brother. Because I wanted to see who you'd be when you thought I had nothing. And now I know. I walked toward the exit. The hostess called after me, Miss Thompson, have a wonderful day. Behind me I heard Derek say to Marcus, did your sister really just? Brother, I corrected without turning around. And yes, I did. By Monday morning the story had spread throughout my family. My phone was flooded with messages, but I was already on a plane to Austin to check on property renovations at one of my boutique hotels. Mom called 17 times. Dad called 9. Marcus called 34. I didn't answer any of them. Finally, at 11 a.m. I received an email from Marcus. It was long, rambling, full of apologies and explanations and justifications. But buried in the middle was one sentence that caught my attention. I know I was horrible to you, but I didn't know who you were. That was the problem, wasn't it? He didn't know who I was. And more importantly, it had never occurred to him to find out. I deleted the email and went back to work, building an empire one property at a time, wearing jeans and a sweater and never apologizing for either. They called me the family disappointment. It wasn't said to my face, at least not always. But I heard it in the whispers, saw it in the sidelong glances, felt it in the weight of silence when I walked into rooms. I'm Amanda Mitchell, and until last week, I was the black sheep of a family that measured success in degrees, job titles, and country club memberships. The day everything changed started like any other Thanksgiving at the Mitchell estate. I parked my modest Honda Civic between my brother James's Tesla and my sister Catherine's Range Rover. The contrast wasn't subtle, but then again nothing in my family ever was. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting my simple black sweater. No designer labels, no flashy jewelry. Just me carrying a homemade pie and years of quiet determination. As I walked up the marble steps, I could already hear the voices inside, the familiar symphony of achievement and ambition. Catherine just made partner at Goldman. James's tech startup got another round of funding. Did you hear about Cousin Michael's merger deal? I took a deep breath and opened the door. The foyer was exactly as I remembered, crystal chandelier, family photos arranged perfectly on the walls. Though somehow none of them included me. Amanda. My mother's voice carried from the kitchen, more announcement than greeting. You're late. Again. Traffic, I said simply, though I'd actually been in a meeting that could change everything. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. I made my way to the kitchen where my mother stood orchestrating dinner like a symphony conductor. Her Chanel suit was immaculate, not a single gray hair out of place. She barely glanced at my pie. "Oh, you brought dessert. How nice. Put it with the others." The others being the professional pastries from that expensive bakery downtown. I placed my pie quietly among them, knowing it wouldn't be served. "Amanda." My sister Catherine emerged from the living room, glass of wine in hand. "Still working at that, what do you call it? Tech support thing?" I smiled faintly. "Something like that. Let them think I answered phones all day. Let them assume I was barely getting by. The truth was far more interesting, but timing was everything." "Well, at least you're employed," she said with that particular tone, part pity, part superiority. "Did you hear about my promotion? Senior partner. Youngest in the firm's history." "Congratulations," I said, meaning it. Catherine had always been brilliant. She'd also always needed everyone to know it. James appeared next, his startup CEO status worn like armor. "Hey sis," he said, glancing at my outfit. "H&M having a sale?" "Target actually," I replied. His smirk widened. If he only knew the real cost of my success, not in dollars, but in countless sleepless nights, calculated risks, and silent sacrifices. Dad was in his study naturally, the sacred space where family legacies were discussed and disappointments were measured. He looked up from his desk as I entered. "Amanda," he said, my name heavy with unspoken judgment. "Glad you could make time for family." I nodded, choosing silence over explanation. How could I tell him I'd just closed a deal that would make his annual income look like pocket change? That while they thought I was struggling in some dead-end job, I'd built something revolutionary. The dining room was a museum of success. Awards, degrees, and photographs covered the walls. Catherine's law school graduation, James's feature in Tech Weekly, Mom's charity gala speeches. The empty spaces spoke volumes about where I stood in the family hierarchy. As we gathered around the table, the usual parade began. Updates on promotions, investments, acquisitions. Each achievement laid out like fine china, meant to shine and impress. "Catherine's firm just landed the Anderson account," Mom announced proudly. $3 billion in assets under management. James's app got featured in the App Store, Dad added. Top 10 in its category. Then came the inevitable pause, the moment where they'd usually skip over me. But this time Aunt Sarah, ever the pot stirrer, turned her attention my way. "And what about you, Amanda? Still doing whatever it is you do?" The table went quiet. All eyes turned to me, some curious, most pitying. I could feel the weight of their expectations, their assumptions, their disappointments. "Oh, you know," I said softly, "just working." "Such a shame," Aunt Sarah stage whispered to my mother. "She had such potential. If only she'd followed the family path." I took a sip of water, hiding my smile. They had no idea that tomorrow morning Forbes would announce their 30 under 30 list. That my little tech support thing was actually an AI company revolutionizing quantum computing. That the whatever it is you do had caught the attention of every major tech giant in Silicon Valley. "Remember when she turned down Harvard Business School?" Uncle Robert chimed in. "Could have had a real career. At least she's independent," Mom offered weakly, the faintest praise she could muster. "Even if it's modest." Dad cleared his throat. "Well, not everyone can be an achiever. Someone has to do the regular jobs." I cut into my turkey, letting their words wash over me. In less than 12 hours, their whole perception would shatter. The Forbes article wasn't just an announcement, it was a revelation. My company, quietly built over 5 years, was now valued at $4.2 billion. My net worth, hidden behind shell companies and careful planning, would make Catherine's partner salary look like an allowance. "Did anyone see the market predictions for next quarter?" James asked, steering the conversation back to familiar territory. My startup's positioned perfectly. I let them talk, let them bask in their perceived successes. Let them think I was the family disappointment one last time. Tomorrow would change everything, but tonight I had a front row seat to the last performance of their outdated show. "Amanda," Catherine said suddenly, "you should really talk to Mark at my firm. He's hiring entry-level positions. Could be a fresh start for you." I smiled, thinking of the email sitting in my inbox from Mark CO, practically begging for a partnership with my company. "Thanks," I said. I'll keep that in mind. The evening continued, a carefully choreographed dance of subtle digs and backhanded compliments. Each time they mentioned my situation, I thought about the Forbes photoshoot hidden in my phone, the headlines already queued for morning release. As dessert arrived, store-bought pies only of course, Dad raised his glass for the annual toast. To the Mitchell family legacy, he declared. To achievement, ambition, and excellence. They clinked glasses while I held mine steady waiting. In just a few hours they'd learn what real achievement looked like. What real ambition could build. What excellence meant beyond their narrow definition. Maybe next year will be Amanda's year, Aunt Sarah offered, not unkindly but with that familiar condescension. I caught my reflection in the silver serving tray, calm, composed, knowing. Maybe it will, I said quietly. Pass the turkey? 5 years earlier I sat in a tiny studio apartment, surrounded by empty coffee cups and code running across 3 monitors. This was where it all began, not in Harvard's hallowed halls or Goldman's trading floors, but in a cramped space that my family would have been embarrassed to visit. My laptop pinged. Another email from my mother. Darling, James is hosting a tech networking event. Perfect opportunity for you to find a real job. Do try to dress appropriately if you come. I minimized the email, focusing instead on the complex algorithm flowing across my screen. What they didn't know was that I'd discovered something revolutionary in quantum computing. Something that would change everything. It started during my disappointing job at a small tech firm, the one my family thought was basic IT support. In reality, I was leading a small research team working on quantum algorithms that could revolutionize data processing. While Catherine collected law firm partnerships and James chased startup funding, I was quietly filing patents that would later become priceless. Your code is incredible, Marcus, my first employee, said one late night. Why don't you tell your family what you're really building? I remembered my father's words when I declined Harvard. You're choosing mediocrity, Amanda. That's not the Mitchell way. They wouldn't understand, I replied, typing faster. Not yet. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. At 3 a.m. while my family slept in their mansion, I solved a quantum computing problem that had stumped experts for decades. My hands shook as I verified the results. The next morning, while my mother texted about Catherine's latest court victory, I was meeting with venture capitalists. They got it immediately. This is revolutionary, one said, sliding a term sheet across the table. We want an early stage. Whatever you need. I took minimal funding, maintaining control. Built everything from ground up, selecting each team member carefully. We worked in an unmarked office building, away from the tech hub where James hosted his networking parties. Every family dinner became an exercise in restraint. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, each holiday a parade of achievements that weren't mine. Or so they thought. Still at that help desk job? James would ask while my company quietly acquired his competitors. You could always go back to school, Mom would suggest as I signed contracts worth millions. I lived simply, drove my old car, kept wearing non-designer clothes. Every dollar went back into the company. When Catherine bought her Range Rover, I was buying server farms. When James celebrated his app's millionth download, I was developing technology that would make his look primitive. Then came the government contracts. The military implications of our quantum computing breakthroughs attracted attention at the highest levels. I sat in Pentagon meetings wearing my cheap clothes, making decisions that would reshape national security. Sorry I missed your charity gala, Mom, I'd say over the phone while signing classified documents. Work's been busy. Oh darling, answering phones must be so exhausting, she'd reply. The company grew. Quietly, strategically. No flashy press releases, no social media buzz. Just solid innovation and execution. My team understood the vision. We weren't building for show, we were building for impact. One Tuesday morning, my CFO walked in with a valuation report. Amanda, she said, we've crossed 4 billion. I stared at the numbers while my phone buzzed with another family text. Catherine bragging about her new summer house. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Forbes reporter called on a Wednesday. Your quantum computing breakthroughs are remarkable, she said. We want to feature you in 30 under 30. I hesitated. This would change everything. No more hiding, no more quiet building. We've verified your company's valuation, she continued. This is going to be big. That same evening I sat through another family dinner. Mom proudly announced James's latest funding round, $10 million. I thought about my last contract, $500 million classified. Maybe Amanda could invest, Uncle Robert joked. If she saved anything from her little job. I excused myself to take a call, the Pentagon again. Another project, another billion-dollar implication. Through the dining room window I could see my family laughing, celebrating their visible successes, completely unaware of what was coming. The photo shoot for Forbes was surreal. They wanted to capture the hidden genius angle. The quiet revolutionary who built an empire in secret. Your family really doesn't know? The photographer asked, adjusting his camera. They will, I said, thinking of the upcoming Thanksgiving dinner. The week before the Forbes release I sat in my real office, the top floor of a building I owned. Monitors showed our global operations, quantum computers processing data that would reshape industries. My assistant knocked. Your mother called. Wanted to remind you about Thanksgiving dinner. She said, and I quote, try to be on time for once. I looked out over the city at buildings where decisions were made using my technology. At streets where cars ran on systems my company had optimized. At a world that was already changing because of work my family thought was just tech support. Tell her I'll be there, I said. The day before Thanksgiving, final preparations for the Forbes release were made. The article was set to go live at 6 a.m. Eastern. My team had prepared for the media storm, the investor calls, the inevitable questions. Your phones will explode, my PR director warned. Everyone will want to know how you built this in secret. I thought of all the family dinners where I sat quietly, letting them assume I was struggling. All the condescending advice I'd absorbed while closing billion-dollar deals. That night I parked my Honda outside my real house, a modest 3-bedroom I used when not staying at my penthouse. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. Wearing something nice tomorrow? Mom's invited some important people. I looked at my closet, designer clothes still in garment bags never worn. Tomorrow I'd wear my usual simple outfit. Let them see that success didn't need Gucci labels or Rolex watches. The Forbes article was perfect. The photos professional but understated. The numbers undeniable. My net worth, my company's impact, the technological breakthroughs, all laid out in black and white. As I went to bed that night I thought about how everything would change. How the whispers would stop, the condescension would fade, the disappointment would transform into disbelief. But mostly I thought about the look that would cross their faces when they realized that while they were broadcasting their success, I was quietly building something revolutionary. Tomorrow, over turkey and stuffing, their definition of achievement would be completely rewritten. Thanksgiving morning arrived with a soft ping from my phone, 6 a.m. Forbes had gone live. I lay in bed for a moment knowing the world was about to shift. My PR team had already sent the first metrics. Article trending, shares exploding, comments flooding in. I made coffee and waited. My brother James called first at 6:13 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Catherine was next, 3 times in 5 minutes. Then Mom, Dad, Aunt Sarah, Uncle Robert, a cascade of calls and texts that made my phone dance across the kitchen counter. Amanda, is this true? Call me immediately. What's going on? $4.2 billion? I silenced my phone and got ready for dinner, choosing my usual simple black sweater and slacks. Today they'd learn that power didn't need designer labels. By noon the story had exploded. CNBC picked it up. Tech's hidden billionaire. The quantum computing revolutionary no one saw coming. Wall Street Journal. Mitchell Innovations. The stealth company reshaping global technology. Bloomberg. Meet Amanda Mitchell, the secretive genius behind modern quantum computing. My PR director called. It's chaos out here. Every major network wants an interview. The Pentagon's making statements about your contracts. Your company's stock would be surging if you were public. I smiled. Let's focus on Thanksgiving dinner first. When I pulled up to my parents' house at 2 p.m. the scene was different. Security guards hired by my concerned father after reporters started showing up stood at the gate. My old Honda caused visible confusion until they checked their list. Ms. Mitchell, one said, suddenly standing straighter. Sorry, we didn't, recognize the car. The driveway was full of familiar luxury vehicles, but now my Civic didn't seem modest. It seemed like a statement. I could hear the commotion inside before I even reached the door. It swung open before I could knock. Mom stood there, perfectly coiffed as always, but her hands were shaking. "Amanda," she whispered like she was seeing me for the first time. "Why didn't you tell us?" I stepped past her into the foyer, now crowded with family members who'd apparently arrived early for the show. The usual Thanksgiving chatter was replaced by tense silence. Dad emerged from his study, holding a tablet with the Forbes article still glowing on the screen. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. 4.2 billion, he said finally, each word careful and measured. "Give or take," I replied quietly. "Market fluctuations, you know." Catherine sat on the stairs, still in her power suit but looking oddly deflated. Her phone kept buzzing, probably her law firm partners realizing who her sister really was. James stood by the fireplace, gripping his whiskey glass too tightly. The Forbes article had mentioned acquiring some of his competitors. He'd been pitching to my company for months, never knowing who really owned it. "But, you drive a Honda," Aunt Sarah said weakly, as if this was the most shocking part. "It's reliable," I answered, walking to the kitchen with my pie. This time no one made comments about store-bought being better. Mom followed me, wringing her hands. "Darling, all this time, we thought, why didn't you say anything?" I placed my pie carefully on the counter. Would it have mattered? When I declined Harvard, you'd already decided my path. When I took that first job, you'd already written the story. But the Pentagon, quantum computing, billions. Her voice cracked. "We're your family." "Yes," I said softly. "And family should believe in you without needing proof." The dining room was eerily quiet as everyone took their seats. The usual hierarchy had shattered. Catherine's partner salary, James's startup valuation, even Dad's corporate empire. Everything looked different now. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. "Well, this is unexpected." "Is it?" I asked, looking around the table. "Or did you just never bother to expect it from me?" Dad stood suddenly, wine glass in hand. His traditional toast, but for the first time he seemed uncertain. To the Mitchell family legacy," he started, then stopped. The words, achievement, and excellence, stuck in his throat as he looked at me. "To quiet revolution," I offered, raising my water glass. "To building rather than boasting. To success that doesn't need announcements." Mom fainted then, actually fainted, when someone's phone showed another headline: "Mitchell Innovations receives $10 billion buyout offer." As they rushed to fan her, I stayed seated, calmly cutting my turkey. "Pass the cranberry sauce?" I asked James, who hadn't moved since the Forbes notification hit his phone. "You bought Comtech last month," he whispered. "That was you." "Among others," I nodded. "Your pitch was interesting, by the way. Just not quite what we were looking for." Catherine found her voice next. "Mark, my firm Sue, he's been trying to reach you all morning." "I know," I said. "We're restructuring his company's entire digital infrastructure. The contract's worth more than your firm's annual revenue." Dad returned, helping a wobbly mom back to her seat. Their faces had lost that certainty, that assured confidence that they knew best. "Why now?" Dad asked finally. "Why reveal everything today?" I looked around the table, at the family photos on the walls that had never included me, at the awards and achievements they'd celebrated while dismissing mine, at the empty spaces where my successes should have been displayed. "Because today isn't about revealing success," I said quietly. "It's about revealing truth. About showing that achievement doesn't always wear designer labels or drive luxury cars. Sometimes it works silently, builds steadily, and changes the world without needing applause." Aunt Sarah dabbed her eyes. "We've been horrible to you." "No," I corrected her. "You've been blind. There's a difference." My phone buzzed. The president's office requesting a meeting about national security implications of our quantum technology. I declined politely. Today was for family. "I have a confession," I said, looking at my mother. "That tech support job you thought I had? I owned the company. That small office you refused to visit? It was one of 30 worldwide. That simple life you pitied? It was a choice." Mom's hands trembled as she reached for her water. "All those holidays you missed. I was in Pentagon meetings, Mom. Or signing contracts in Tokyo. Or developing technology that will help cure diseases." The silence that followed was heavy with realization. Years of assumptions crumbling, of certainties dissolving, of hierarchies collapsing. What happens now? James asked, his voice small. I smiled, genuinely this time. No. We eat turkey. But really talk. And maybe we learn to see people for who they are, not who we assume them to be. Dad stood again, this time without his wine glass. Amanda, I know, I said softly. Pass the turkey. As dishes were passed and plates were filled, I felt the shift in the room. The family disappointment had become the family revelation. The quiet daughter had become the powerful CEO. The assumed failure had become the unprecedented success. But more importantly, the masks had fallen. The pretenses had crumbled. And maybe, just maybe, real family could begin. My phone buzzed one final time, another headline. Mitchell Innovations announces revolutionary cancer detection technology. I smiled, reaching for the mashed potatoes. Anyone want to hear about what I really do for a living? And for the first time in years, my family truly listened.